when you were just a little girl. It's always been in you. And there's nobody that can leave my life that can keep God from keeping his covenant with me. I'm not in covenant with a person. I'm not in covenant with a political party. I'm in covenant with God Almighty. I am God Almighty. I am God Almighty. I am God Almighty.
So you just heard that from Pastor Stephen Furtick. I've known about Furtick for years now. I've never really liked the guy. I've always known there was something wrong with him. I've always known that the guy was insidious and nefarious. And this really just confirms it. I always knew that the guy was a psycho and a narcissist. This confirms it. When the guy was talking, when Furtick was saying all this stuff, when he was saying that he was God Almighty, the way he said it, he was so full of hubris and just excessive egotistical confidence. It makes you wonder what this guy is on when talking this way. Because, you know, he's a pastor. A pastor, to a great extent, is like a politician. He's like a bureaucrat. He's a very diplomatic person. And so he knows what not to say, what to say on the pulpit. He knows what would get him in trouble if he said it. And he says this. He says the most Antichrist thing that someone can say, which is that he is God. Remember, in the New Testament, St. Paul talks about the Antichrist declaring himself to be God. Declaring himself to be God. And this guy is in accordance to the spirit of the Antichrist. He's speaking in accordance to the spirit of the Antichrist. So it makes you wonder what got him to become so confident and full of hubris. I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, man. Okay. It's almost like, oh, man. This is, okay, I don't want this to come out the wrong way, but this guy is talking like he's on drugs. And I wouldn't be surprised that this guy, I don't know, sniffs some coke. This guy looks like he belongs in the Jersey Shore. He looks like a thug more than a pastor. Wouldn't surprise me at all that he, I don't know, sniffed up some coke before a sermon. And he's like Ellis in the Die Hard, you know, when he's about to face the Germans, and he's like, I can handle this Euro trash. He sniffs up some coke, and it gives him this like crazy amount of confidence to the point where logic is just thrown out the window. But jokes aside, I mean, the guy is completely unhinged. And here is one thing that I have noticed about the evangelical world. Every 10 years, the evangelicals get crazier and more unhinged. Every 10 years, they enter a new level of retardation and they become more unhinged. I remember over a decade ago, I was complaining about the current state of the evangelical church. I remember when Rick Warren brought Dr. Oz to his church, and Dr. Oz, in front of the entire congregation, talked about the importance of meditation. And since Dr. Oz is a Turkish Sufist, we all knew, or at least I knew, that when he referred to meditation, he was referring to Sufi meditation. And nobody batted an eye, nobody cared, everybody was indifferent, nobody in Warren's church even questioned what was going on. And I knew at that point that the entire evangelical movement is completely sabotaged. There are many good people who are evangelicals, but the entire church system, the entire church network of the evangelical church, of the evangelical apparatus, is sabotaged. It's compromise, and it goes with the flow. It goes with the flow, and it adapts to trends. It adapts to fads, and so because trends and fads change every half decade, and they change even more every decade, then that means by the year 2025, the church is going to look crazier than what it is today. And by 2030, the American evangelical church is going to enter a new dimension of retardation because they get crazier every 10 years. It's insane. But here's another thing that this video confirms to me. It also confirms to me that even American Christians are ripe for the plucking by the hand of Antichrist and fascism. Because only a tyrannical, evil, narcissistic despot, monster, would say that he is God. And so this pastor says, I'm God Almighty, and these people are clapping. And you could say, well, Ted, they're just so excited, they probably weren't even paying attention. Nonsense. Complete nonsense. They hear this guy. Don't tell me they don't hear this guy. Oh, they heard everything that he said except for those last words. Is that what you're going to tell me? They're clapping their hands in utter ecstasy, like they're in the middle of a nightclub in Austria somewhere, and they're taking MDMA, and they're clapping their hands drunk off of theological insanity, and they don't care. They don't care. They're completely indifferent to this. They're completely indifferent to what this guy said. This guy said the most antichrist thing somebody could say. They don't give a damn. What does this tell me? Americans, even American evangelicals, who always talk about, tyranny's coming. They're always talking about, they're the people who don't even want to hear the truth. They're just sheeple. We're not sheeple. We're the shepherds. We're watching the wolves. The people who always boast themselves as people who are gonna fight against tyranny and fight for the Constitution and all this stuff. They will hear their pastor saying, "I'm God Almighty," and just clap their hands. Now, I know that there are many evangelicals in America who don't agree with this, but at the same time, what this phenomenon or what this Furtick guy represents is mainstream evangelical Christianity. He is part of this whole apparatus of modern-day American Christianity, this Starbucks Christianity that has become a complete leviathan that continues to evolve into a worse and worse monster every 5 to 10 years. And you have to look at the whole thing and say, my goodness, this reflects the system that I am in. It's like, listen, not every single Catholic priest is a sexual predator or a pederast or a pedophile or whatever, but the fact is that there are so many Catholic priests who are predators. That reflects how rotten the Catholic Church is from within. So we can't just sit here and say, well, this is just a minority. No, Steve Furtick is one of the most popular pastors in America. So this is not the disease itself. This is a symptom to the disease, and the disease is the faddish hysteria that plagues American churchianity. Now, this also reflects how American society can turn to fascism. How if you can and people are going to say, well, no, Americans won't just accept somebody. Well, okay, fine. A lot of them won't. I'll grant you that. But enough of them would. In other words, if they can become so dangerously fascinated by a leader to the point where this person can say the most insane stuff and they'll still follow him, that is a sign that people will follow fascism when it comes down to it. And they would be indifferent to the evil that their leader says. As long as this leader fascinates me, as long as he intoxicates me with his words, with certain words, I don't care about all the other evil things that he says. It doesn't matter. He inspires me. And that's what this whole thing represents. Doesn't really surprise me at all. Well, I'll be honest with you. It did surprise me a little. Somebody sent me the video yesterday and I was watching it and I was like, oh my God, he actually says it. I thought it was an exaggeration. I'm like, oh, it's probably just an exaggeration. Maybe somebody interpreted his words to mean that. And I watched the video and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's real. This guy actually says it. But it doesn't surprise me that much, I should say, because there was a video that came out not too long ago in which Furtick was hanging out with this guy, Charlemagne. Oh, this is not really ironic, actually. He was hanging out with the biggest African-American radio host in America. He calls himself Charlemagne the God. That's what this guy calls himself. He literally calls himself God. Okay? So Furtick was hanging out with a guy who calls himself God, and now Furtick is calling himself God. So this shouldn't surprise us at all. It's complete insanity. It's complete insanity. Anyway, yeah, those are my thoughts on that. Hope you guys have learned something from this message. You guys just heard some theology. God bless.